Getting a buy-to-let property is a dream for many people. It allows you to invest your hard-earned money into an asset that grows in value over time, and it also rewards you with monthly cash flow from the profits of rent. If you're just here for the top line figure, I'll give it you in the intro, and then if you want to stick around, we'll dive into the figures in a lot more detail to really understand what it takes to afford a buy-to-let property. Now, similar to buying your own home, you would use a mortgage on a buy-to-let property. Now, typically this would be around 75% loan to value. This means that you put 25% in, and the bank puts 75% in. Currently in these times, we're looking at values of around £60,000 to £90,000 for a decent semi-detached or terraced house up north, for example in Manchester or Liverpool. This means if you was looking at a house around £60,000, you could get started in a buy-to-let with around £15,000 plus a little bit extra for costs, legal fees and surveys. I've also attached an easy to use free spreadsheet which is just down in the description, so there's a link in there, check it out, and it'll give you all of the numbers and rough costs if you're trying to cost up a buy-to-let deal. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Matt. I work for a bank by day, I invest in property on the side, and on this channel we explore all things money, finance and property investing to help people lead a more financially savvy life. So, as I recommend in all of my videos, if you don't own your own home first, then you should definitely think about that before you even start looking at buy-to-let properties. The reason being is that there is a huge tax-free advantage to buying your own home and then doing it up. This could be as simple as putting a brand new kitchen in or a brand new bathroom, but when you look at things like new builds versus old builds, and I've got a video that you can check out just here about that, you begin to understand buying a property below market value and then using the extra cash that you've saved on refurbishing it, that by the time you've increased the value in the property, if you've done your numbers right, this should be more than the cost of the refurbishment. Therefore, all of that gain and equity that you've got in the property is also completely tax-free, and you just generated yourself a massive pot of cash to then either reinvest in a property in the future or to use as a bigger deposit on a bigger house, and that's the best way to actually climb up the property ladder. I highly recommend just buy a cheap home, go and live in it, and then refurb everything, make it look really nice, and then sell it after a year or two. It doesn't have to be a huge long commitment, but if you run the numbers correctly on the property, you actually make a decent amount of income. Now, purchasing a buy-to-let property can be very daunting, and if you've already bought your own home, then at least you've already been through the process once. It can be very stressful, there can be lots of problems, but at the end of the day, it's a huge achievement, and it's exactly the same with buy-to-let property. If you've done it once, then you can do it again, but the best thing you can do is surround yourself with loads of professionals. So get yourself a really good solicitor, a fantastic accountant, an incredible mortgage broker, and by putting these people around you, they'll be able to protect you and advise you and help you along that process as things happen. I also recommend getting on the good side of an estate agent so that they can really help you manage a property and manage tenants for you, so you can avoid really having to go into the detail of all of the regulation and the paperwork associated with renting a house out to a tenant. I was watching a fantastic video by Jack Smith recently where he talked about whether to do your own refurb on your own or hire a builder, and one of the things I left in the comments was really around if you're a property investor, whether you want to work in the business or whether you want to work on the business. And by surrounding yourself with a good power team, you can focus on what you do best, and that's building the business itself rather than doing the day-to-day work. And in terms of cash flow, with our example of the house of £60,000, you could buy a decent condition property up in Liverpool and spend a minimum amount on the refurb and still make a good £250 to £280 a month profit after all of the costs. So it's a great way of getting started without having to spend tens and tens of thousands of pounds to get your first buy-to-let property investment. There's lots to learn and there's lots of compliance, but if you do your homework and do your research, you should read some books, listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos just like these. And you can also check out videos on my channel where I've got loads of videos on helping brand new property investors get started in the world and really just give people an opportunity to hit the ground running. And to give you a real life example, there's another property YouTuber called Justin Wilkins. He's doing really well and he's bought his first buy-to-let property last year, and he's documented some of that process on his own YouTube channel. Now, his figures are incredible, and it really helped me realise that you don't need loads and loads of money to get started. So when you look at his figures, you can see that his deposit for the actual property, he bought it at £58,000. He managed to get a fantastic discount on it. The deposit's only just over £11,500. His solicitor fees were £1,300. Limited company, because he bought through a limited co, was around £200 to get everything set up there. Plus, I would assume there are some accountancy fees on top of that, unless he got a very cheap accountant. Stamp duty, £1,740. Now, this will be the 3% if he already owns his own home. Surveys, £500. Mortgage, £700, which will be the fee to get the mortgage set up. And some super cheap works. The property obviously didn't need that much doing to it, so that was in £365 £75. So all in, his total was £16,405, which is absolutely incredible. And then when you look at his rent and all the costs that come out of that, his rent is £525 a month, mortgage £149, agent £75, insurance £37, and after all of his costs, his profit is £264 every single month, just from a house where the deposit was only £11,000, which is mind-blowing. And as you can see, Justin is making £3,100 a year just from this one buy-to-let. Now, there have been a few issues with it, and he explains in other videos some of the extra costs that he's had to fork out to spend on repairs, but otherwise it's been a good investment for him. So after you've educated yourself and you've got a basic understanding of buy-to-let property and also how little it takes to get involved and started in the industry, you can begin viewing properties and going to auctions, and as long as you can learn what potential red flags there are on properties to avoid buying one that needs tens of thousands of pounds of structural work doing to it because you didn't spot the huge crack in the wall, for example, then you can make sure that you go there, you manage your risks properly, and really make the start on your first buy-to-let property. There are some darker sides to property investing. You might get some really bad tenants who then stop paying the rent, and as we've seen this year after the eviction ban, a lot of landlords have been left with tenants who aren't paying any rent. They're stuck paying the mortgage and they're accruing a massive, massive debt. Well, the reality is that you're going to have to take them to court. It's a very lengthy process and it does cost a lot of money as well. I think in a lot of cases it doesn't get that far, but for the unlucky few it does happen, and it is the reality and the bad side of property investing. It's something that I'm very aware of, and one thing you need to do to help mitigate that is make sure that you vet and reference your tenants really, really well before you get them into the property. And by that way, you can kind of mitigate as much of that risk as possible. But typically on the flip side, if you do get some really good buy-to-let tenants, often they'll stay there for many years and you won't have to deal with having a high turnover of tenants unless the property's in a rubbish condition. So as long as you look after the house, look after the tenants, you'll keep them there for a very, very long time. And it means that you'll have that constant stream of rental income coming into your business or in your personal name every single month. The main thing as a property investor in the UK, you have an opportunity to provide someone with a beautiful, safe home to live in that is their place that they can call their own home. And that's the joy of property investing. It's not about having loads of houses and being greedy. It's about creating housing that's affordable for people who can't afford to buy a house. And within a few years, you'll realise the power of the property market. And as property prices do increase, that original £60,000 house that you bought could be worth 80, 90, even £100,000, and then that money and the equity that you have in that house you can either sell and realise the profits, or you can refinance and pull it out tax-free and then use that money to buy the next property and then the next property, and again keep creating amazing houses and amazing spaces for people to live in. I hope you found this video useful or inspiring. You can check out loads of the videos like this one here on how you can get started with investing in a limited company, or this one below on how I would get started with £30,000 in property investing, which is double the amount of what we spoke about in this video. So feel free to check out one of these videos and I'll see you on the other side.